Hello, my name is Ashley and this is my channel CajunAsh Talks, and today I'm going to be doing my May 2016 wrap-up. And a wrap-up is me telling you all the books I read this month, which there were a lot, and telling you my thoughts and feels on each of them. So let's get started because there might be 12 of them. The first book I read this month was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and it is actually a part of a two-book series by Leigh Bardugo, and it came out, this book came out about a year ago, and there was a lot of hype surrounding it. It is a YA fantasy novel that has a whole cast of characters. It's about 6 points of view, and it is a heist novel, and I was not the biggest fan of it. This was a 2 out of 5 for me. Every time that we got in with a character and started following a character, there was a backstory associated with the character, and I'm okay with backstories, but it took me too much out of the present plot, and it made the book really slow-paced for me. Once the gang all got together and formed, kind of like Ocean's 11, once the gang was all formed, I thought that that would be the end of the backstories, but they continued throughout the novel, so I really wasn't a fan. It probably wasn't this book's fault. It got in between me and reading A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I have been dying to read book 2 of that. So I think that I will definitely continue on with this series, and I think that I will probably like book 2 better. The next book that I read is, I just alluded to, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a reread for me. It is an adult fantasy novel. It was probably my favorite read from all of last year, so I was looking forward to rereading it before the second book came out, and it did not disappoint. This is a fantasy novel, like I said, and there are fae and there are humans and magic, and it follows our main character, Fairy, and she kills a wolf, and it turns out to be a fae wolf, and that is illegal for humans to do, so she gets taken by a beast back to his castle. So if this sounds familiar, it is. It sounds just like Beauty and the Beast. It is a retelling of that, but you think you know where it's going, and you're right about halfway, but then Sarah J. Maas turns the world upside down and makes it glorious like she does. So I highly recommend this novel. It is fabulous. 5 out of 5 stars, of course. So that brings me to the next book I read. After A Court of Thorns and Roses, I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. It is book 2 in her trilogy, and I can't really talk too much about it other than it still follows our main character, Fairy, and it picks up right where book 1 left off, and it's amazing, and it's addictive, and you're not going to want to put it down, and it's great. It will probably be my favorite book of 2016, and I can say that, and I know that we're not halfway through the year, but I am pretty confident on that. The fourth book I read this month was Anna Dressed in Blood by Kendar Blake, and I don't normally read YA horror / paranormal books, but I gave this one a shot. I was looking forward to being scared because a lot of the reviews said people were really scared from this book. It follows our main character, a guy named Kaz, and he is a ghostbuster or a ghost fighter, hunter, killer. And it is a trait that he inherited from his father, who was killed doing this line of work. Kaz and his mom hear about stories and folklore that have to do with ghosts in North America, and they follow those folklores and stories so Kaz can go and hunt the ghost. And he shows up in a town, and there is a story about a girl in a house who is haunting the house and killing people, and her name is Anna, and the story takes off from there. I liked Anna in this book, and I liked her backstory, but I thought it was kind of a hokey book because there was a romance, which I kind of wasn't expecting in a horror novel with a guy and a ghost. That it was kind of weird. So I only gave this book a 2 out of 5. It is a duology. There is a second book out, but I will not be reading it. The 5th book I read this month was 1+1 by Jojo Moyes. This is an adult contemporary novel. It follows our main character, Jess. She's our first point of view. She's a single mom. She's raising her stepson and her biological daughter. Her husband has just left and she is struggling financially. And then our second point of view is Ed, and he is a techie millionaire guy, and he has just gotten in some financial trouble with his company because of insider trading. So they meet up and hilarity ensues. This was an easy read for me. It was a contemporary. It was fast paced. It was funny. It had some touching moments. It definitely did not leave you devastated like Jojo Moyes' other book, Me Before You, but it was a good read and I gave it a 4 out of 5. The 6th book I read this month was A Star Touched Screen by Roshni Chashki. And I'm sure I butchered that name, I'm sorry. I did a full review for this book and I will link it below. All of my thoughts and feels are in that. This was a 2 out of 5 star read for me. I wasn't really crazy about it. This is a YA fantasy novel. It follows our main character, Maya, who is 16 years old. She was born with a horoscope that promised a marriage of death and destruction. There's not too much I will say about this book. If you want to read or if you want to listen to my thoughts, I will link my spoiler-free review below, but this really wasn't one of my favorites. The 7th and 8th books I read this month were by Becky Wallace, and they are in the Keeper's Chronicle duology, and the first book in that series is called The Story Spinner, and the second is called The Skylighter. This is a YA fantasy duology, and it was really good. Both books for me were a 5 out of 5 read. This is told from multiple points of view. There's about 6 or so points of view that it's told from. Our main character, Joanna, is in a circus kind of performer world, and her family are the story spinners of these performers, and they tell tales, and the story starts out with her father dying mysteriously, and Joanna and her mother and her 2 brothers get kicked out of the kind of performer group. So it takes off from there. Some of the complaints online that I read were there were too many points of views. I do not agree with that. Definitely at the beginning of the novel, I wanted to follow Joanna because I felt just more vested in her. But as the story took off, I definitely liked every point of view that we were given, and I felt something for everybody. I immediately picked up the second book and devoured it right away. So these were really good books for me. I felt like these books were not trying to be more than what they were marketed as. They were marketed as 7th grade and up, which is exactly what they were. They were fast-paced. There was romance. There was angst. There was magic. And it was all good, and it was very well done, and I will definitely read more of Becky's books. The 9th book I read this month was The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I gave this book a 5 out of 5. It is a YA contemporary novel, and it deals with a little bit of heavier topics. I do have a full book review on it, and I will link that below. This novel follows our main character, Mallory, and she grew up in a foster care home alongside another little boy named Ryder. And the home had lots of mental and physical abuse, so this book very much delves into those topics. And like I said, it's a heavier read for a YA contemporary, but it's a really good read, and by the end you will have a new book boyfriend, so there's that. The 10th book I read this month was The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is an adult fantasy series. It is book 1 of 7. And I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. The book is set in a future London in the year 2059, and there are clairvoyants, and those guys are humans that have kind of evolved with magical powers and regular humans. And the clairvoyance or clairvoyancy is illegal in this world. This follows a 19-year-old named Paige, and she is our main character. She is a clairvoyant, and she works for the High Lord of London, or one of the High Lords of London, and she does illegal things, and she gets kidnapped, and then the story changes and kind of takes off from there when she gets kidnapped. So for the first 25% of the book or so, I was really confused, and then about halfway I was still confused, and then at the end I was still confused. So this book left me kind of confused. It took till about chapter 5 when I was okay with the confusion and I just kept powering through the novel, and it did get less confusing in a sense, or I just stopped really caring that I was confused and just powered through it. There is a dictionary that rivals Webster's dictionary at the end of this book, and the author makes up tons of words throughout the book and tons of phrases and sayings and people and different magical abilities, and those are all defined in the end. But reading on my Kindle, it is very difficult to always be taken out of the story to reference a dictionary at the end. I am okay with a glossary, but at the same time, when there's like 2 words every page that I need to reference in the end, it really does take me out of the story, and it's hard for me to just want to always reference that. So I just read on and I was okay with being confused. The world in here was really unique, and the author gets lots of praises for that, and I'm kind of giving her kudos as well. But the story in and of itself was a little predictable. This is, like I said, book 1 of 7, and I'm still up in the air about whether I will continue on with this or not. The 11th book I read this month, I know 11, was Forbidden by Tabitha Suzama, and this is supposedly a YA contemporary, but it is absolutely not YA. This is more of an adult novel. This deals with a very taboo topic. It follows from 2 points of view. The first point of view is 17-year-old Locken, and he is the oldest brother to 16-year-old Maya and their 3 younger siblings. The second point of view is Maya. Maya and Locken are raising their 3 younger siblings together. Their mother is pretty absent throughout the book, and their father is non-existent. He ran off with another lady, and these guys had to raise and grow up really quick, and it follows their struggles, but it also is a love story between the 2 main points of view. So it is a very tough read, but I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's definitely a different read. It's not like a Flowers in the Attic read. It's pretty tough. And on the light note of my end of the month reading, I read the 12th book is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. It is a YA contemporary novel, and it is my second Morgan Matson book to read. I wasn't as crazy about this book as I was the first one, Since You've Been Gone, but this was a pretty good read for me. I think I gave it like a 3 or 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was a little predictable. It follows our main character. She is 17, and she is the congressman's daughter, and she's always had to live a perfect life. And it is the summer between junior year and senior year, as with most Morgan Matson's books. That's when they're set. And it follows her during that summer. Some parts of the novel I felt were really good and depicted a really real high school situation. Her friends were really a good part of this book, and the banter that they had between each other was really good. But then there were other parts of the book that I just found juvenile and predictable, but I think that's target audience, probably to be expected. So it was a good book, but like I said, some of it was just a little predictable, but still good. So that's it, 12 books, and I know that's a lot of books, and some of them were really good. Like I said, some of these are my favorite books so far of the year, and probably will be the whole year. Some of these will stand up as my favorites. I will be posting more videos soon, so if you like what you saw today, please click subscribe, and I will see you soon. Thanks, bye.